Well, hello everyone. It's us. We're back for another episode of the Fandrusa on the Bharat Army. Wow, Test cricket, eh? Bloody hell! I tell you what, if this Test series was a movie, it would be the good, the bad, and the ugly because we got everything under the sun happened in this last Test series.
Wow.
So let's look at who we've got here with us, our cricket connoisseurs who are going to be here to talk about the England-India series. We've got Rav back on the podcast. How you doing, Rav?
Hi, Ash. Yeah, no, it's good to be here. It's been an exhausting summer, so why not talk about it for the rest of the evening?
You guys all look more exhausted than the Indian contingent. Jinesh is back. How you doing, Jinesh?
I'm good, very well. We won two tests. Whether it's a series winning or not, time will tell. But it was an excellent summer.
Indeed, yeah, quite the summer it was for all of us. Amish, you had quite the summer, didn't you?
Yeah, very tiring summer. Just like Rav and JC said, it was exhausting to say the least, but very satisfying. I'm going to take a slightly different approach to JC, and I'm seeing it as India won the series.
Oh, can you just not say stuff like that? Because now we're going to get Ganguly making a statement saying whole series has been awarded 5-0 to England or something like that. Han is back as well. I only had one ticket for one day of these tests and I had my tooth removed and I didn't recover in time and I had to give my ticket to Ahan. So I hope you enjoyed yourself on that day, Ahan.
Yeah, I did actually. That was day 4, I think, of the Oval. So it was a good day. I got to see a Pant 50, which is always fun. But yeah, it was good fun. I think great Test series. India won 2-1, and yeah, we move from here.
Yeah, we do. Did we win 2-1? Did we not win 2-1? Is it 2-2? Did we forfeit? All of these questions are still right up in the air, so nobody quite knows. Up is down, left is right, and all of that type of thing. But we do know that 4 tests were played of this 5-test series. India, of course, went into the first one at Trent Bridge with, I think, a little bit of trepidation for some of us. But, they ended up drawing that first test. And it was quite a memorable test as well. There we go. England made 183 runs. Obviously, as usual, Virat Kohli lost that toss on that one. And it ended with India at 52 for 1, chasing 150 odd to win. But rain came and saved the day.
Terrible.
In the second test, of course, was... one for the ages, shall we say? One for the ages. Despite Joe Root's magnificent 180, India, look at that, 298 for 8, declared. They declared, everybody. Mohammad Shami, 56 runs or 70 balls. And then the heist of all heists. In that last 60 overs of hell, England all out for 120, and India won that match by 151 runs. Moving on to Headingley, this was our now traditional collapse, which happens in every series. It's a tradition, everybody. Embrace it. India all out for 78, akin to the 36 that we were all out in Australia. And pretty much got rolled over quite badly in that match, losing by an innings and 76 runs. And then, of course, the Oval. The Oval is the 4th test of that. 191 again, we were a little bit trepidatious again, but that 466 in the second innings, Rohit Sharma 127, and then another fantastic bowling display by the mighty India, and we were 2-1 up in that series. What happened from that point on will be up for debate later on in this podcast. So, guys, let's talk a little bit about the batting first, because I think that, going into this series, the batting was always that thing we were quite worried about. Let's have a quick look at the top scorers. I think we've got a little graphic of our top scorers in this series so far. Of course, Joe Root, magnificent Joe Root throughout this entire series. 564 runs in 4 tests. That's quite the stat. Followed by Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Pujara, that guy, he's up there. And Virat Kohli after him. But, you can see the gulf between Joe Root's 564 and Virat Kohli's 218. Just the difference in how many people scored different kinds of runs in this series. So there were a lot of question marks going into this series for our batsmen. And what I want to know from you guys is, were some of those questions answered? So if we go over to JC first, if we go over to Jinesh, Jin, what did you think about this test series and our batsmen? Were those questions answered for you?
So look, having been a big Rohit Sharma fan, for a long, long time. You know, I was literally begging for the management team to give him a run. I think he's answered his critics. You know, the number of people that were saying to me, you know, he's gonna drive outside off stump and nick off. So Rohit Sharma, excellent. KL Rahul exceeded my expectations in the first 2 test matches. Test match 3 and 4, he kind of went back to the KL Rahul we know. Rahane, I think, you know, everyone's going to agree with me now that Rahane needs to say bye-bye. Virat Kohli, he showed glimpses. He showed glimpses of, you know, what a great batsman he is. I think he's 1 knock away. Pujara's the funny one, yeah, because the numbers will suggest he's had a decent series. But reading into it, you know, he averages 5 in the first innings over 5 test matches this summer. For me, that's not good enough. Second innings, he's batted really well. Look, he's contributed to wins, but I do think his days are numbered. Every time the new ball came, he just didn't have a clue. Like, you know, at the Oval, he was 61, got out. Headingley, he was 91. Soon as the new ball came, he's a different player. And then Rishabh Pant, I think very, very disappointing. You know, average 20. You take the 50 away, he averages 16. But I was impressed at the Oval on that flat track. I was impressed with, you know, he scored 50 of 105 balls. Yeah, bit of maturity. But was that because the ball wasn't moving? So he didn't have... I just felt every time the ball moved, he gave up. You know, he just started dancing down the wicket, hoiking it, you know. And the funny thing is, right, over 2 days at the Oval, I had an Englishman in his 40s say to me, why you got him? And I had a Pakistani taxi driver say the same thing. So I think he's got a lot of learning to do. So ultimately, if you ask me, what have you learnt about the batting? Nothing really, to be honest. It's the same old.
What would be your marks out of 10 for the batting in this series then? If you had to just give an overall score for our batting lineup?
Probably about 6 out of 10. I think we've been bailed out by our tail enders, and the fact that we've got a magnificent bowling attack, right? That's the reason why we won 2 test matches.
But Jin, don't you think that now, I guess test cricket is arguably different, where there's clearly no consistent 400 plus scores, not justifying our batting, but I guess are we wrong to expect those big scores time and time again? Like, this is modern day test cricket, you could argue.
See, you say that, but you look at the English batting lineup in Test 1 and 2, right? They were as poor as India's. What do? They look for better players, right? They change their lineups. We don't, you know, we act like we're New Zealand, that we've got a talent pool of 2 million. Mate, there's 1.3 billion Indians. Yeah, just try someone new, be it Agarwal, be it Sky, be it Shreyas Iyer, whoever it is, give them a go.
None of those guys you're talking about, none of them have ever held a bat in England before. This is kind of like my issue when it comes to, we're talking about who's going to replace Pujara and Rahane and stuff like that. Surely we can't stick anybody else in this series, because those guys have, like, you're talking about Sky and all of the rest of them, like, they've never held a bat in England before.
I'll say 2 things here. One, 1996, Ganguly did not hold a bat in England. He came, he scored 100. And Sanjay Manjrekar said something brilliant the other day. He said, had they done what, you know, they're doing with Rahane, i.e. not drop him, we would not have seen Rahul Dravid. We would not have seen Ganguly. So unless you try play, how where can it get? How worse can it get?
All of that I agree with you on, but you just said England changed, like, what did they do in the 3rd test or whatever it was? They brought people in, but like India, they only scored 400 plus once. They got a 360 or a 390, whatever it was, once as well. So to be honest, the results, despite them making changes, the results didn't change that much. Like, their batting, like, if you compare it to ours, the results are pretty similar in terms of the scores that were made.
But Amish, what like Dinesh is saying, they don't have the talent pool that we have. Like, England are pretty poor at the moment. I mean, let's be straight up. They're a pretty terrible test team at the moment. Fair enough. The the conditions kind of even themselves out in this series and stuff. But England are really, really bad at Test cricket at the moment. So they don't have the talent pool. They don't have the players waiting in the wings like we do.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that.
Is the fact that we've won 2 Test matches, right? It's brilliant. But if you read into the performances, right, Oval, we were 127 for 7 on the back of a 63 for 8 collapse and a 78 all out, right? So ultimately, we've been bailed out by an excellent bowling team. So it's now up to India. Do they want to carry on being a good team, which they are, or do they want to become a great team? You know, if you have good bowling attacks, you've got the potential to be a great team. If India improves its batting, for example, say we had you know, the 2000s batting, right? This bowling attack, we would have thrashed England 4-0, no problem. It wouldn't even be a contest.
All right. Well, let's go over to Arhan, because obviously, you know, we talked about Rishabh Pant a little bit throughout this. Arhan is obviously Rishabh Pant's #1 fan. Arhan, Rishabh Pant drove you crazy throughout this series. I mean, I know people talked about 3, 4, 5, but 6 and 7 weren't doing much better in this series either. But he did come good in that last match. So, what would you say about our batting lineup in this and how everything went?
Again, I think a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 were all a bit suspect. I think 5 has to go. I mean, it's been too much. It's been too long. He's got to go. He's doing nothing. He's not even like scoring. Even his one innings now is not 100. It's like 50, and we have to kind of argue that it was match winning. I think he's had his time. If he plays India's next test, I would be shocked. For all that Virat Kohli talks about taking ruthless decisions, being a top captain or whatever, if he does not drop Rahane now, something is up. Apart from that, I think our openers saved us. Obviously, I don't agree that KL went back to his old ways. I think his 4th test was very good. I still believe he was not out 2nd innings in the 4th test. I'm not sure he hit that. But yeah, anyway, I will put my hands up and say I was wrong about Rohit Sharma. I said it. I was one of the first people who said he was going to be.
We've got a crazy comment coming just on one of our YouTube viewers. Arun Pandey says, Rohit, a batter for all conditions. Now, there's something that I never thought anyone would ever say about Rohit Sharma.
Yeah,
but if you think about his... Sorry, go on. Apologies.
No, what I was going to say is just the rest of the batting lineup. I think when we talk about Pant, I mean, I know JC has been a fan of Rohit for the longest time, and he's defended him in a career that has had more downs than Pant. So I think one bad series, which also he kind of got a 50 at the end. And even, you know, we say bad, but the issue, if you look at Pant's entire series, I think he had 2 innings where he was in single figures. Maybe the 3rd. Yeah, 2 innings where he was in single figures. So even when he's having a bad test match, he's still giving you at least like 20 runs an innings, which I know it's not great, but it's better than Pujara and Rahane when they were having that dips. They were scoring 5, 6, 7, and then getting a 50, and then again 5, 6. Like at least giving you some runs at the bottom. So I think I have no issues with Pant. I mean, he'll be back next time. He'll grow from this experience. He's good. He's one of our best players. He's been one of our best test players this year. He's won us 3 tests almost single-handedly. So it happens. He'll come back. But yeah, I think number 5 has to go. That's it.
And you know, if you sort your top order out, i.e. your 3, 4, 5, then you'll see the best of Pant, right? So the situations that Pant finds himself aren't ideal either.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I had this conversation with someone that if he comes in at 50 for 4, he's by nature an attacking player. So his way is going to be to counter attack. Okay, he overdid it a little bit this time, but I mean that's his nature. Sometimes it won't come off, so you'll end up being 60 for 5. But if he comes in at 150 for 4, even if he comes up for even half a session or 1 session in today's Test cricket, 250 is a massive score. So I mean he's a game breaker. So I think it's also that everyone in front of him was playing quite average. So at 50 for 4, he's not really going to change the game too much. Even people like Gilchrist and all the top counter attackers, even Stokes, if he comes in continuously at 50 for 4, he's not going to keep doing stuff for you. So I mean, yeah.
Well, we haven't heard from Rav yet, and Rav was at most of the Test matches, or all of them. I think you were at all of them, weren't you, Rav? So what was your thoughts on the batting performances that you saw live?
Yeah, no, I think if you kind of look at the series, it goes into two kind of halves. I think that where India were exposed early to the new ball, where we batted first at Headingley, we obviously went a little bit too gung-ho, probably maybe a little bit off the back of Lords. But I think if you look at Lords, you look at Trent Bridge, and you look at the Oval, there is enough there to suggest that India used those weeks between the World Test Championship final and that first test pretty well. And they used conditions to their advantage. However, I think it's really key to note that this batting lineup continues to underperform on a stage where the bowlers continue to make the breakthroughs to put India into these strong positions. So I think if we go back to Lords again, even day 2 from 270 for 3, India should be making 450, dominating the test match. India 360 all out. And from that
14
point,
runs, 4 wickets.
And England have a way back in at that point. So I think if you look at the combinations that were played, I still think Jadeja's a place too high. I still think Pant is a place too high in England as well.
Well,
so I think
Jadeja was batting at number 5 at one point in the series.
Yeah, I mean, that was clearly ridiculous. And I think the idea of, I understand and appreciate the benefits of left hand, right hand, but you're talking about the first morning of a test match. So I think it's also your vice captain for your shielding. I think there's a big issue there. So I think if you look at the openers, again, like everyone's made really clear, they exceeded expectations. They denied Anderson a lot of first spell wickets, and Anderson only took something like 2 new ball wickets with the new ball first spell the whole series. So that's got to be testament to how they did. I think Kohli, for what it's worth, had more starts than say Pujara, for example, in challenging conditions. But also, again, he didn't make the most of the reprieves that he got, and he did get a few. So I think for him, from his perspective, it will be a disappointing series for his own runs. But I think he clearly could have made that 100 that we were all talking about. He just kind of lost concentration at key times. Pujara, again, I think Jin made a really good point. I don't think Pujara really taught us anything that we didn't know already, because in first innings and second innings, Pujara here was so different. And again, I'm just not sure whether he's going to get any better. So I think if you look at KL, who's somebody who did really well as an opener but could move down as well, then you've obviously Shubman to come back as well. So I think there's a lot of kind of dexterity in the lineup that we can use in the next for this 5th game, whatever happens. So we got to and decide, like Jin, and the guys have said, do we want to be? What is the legacy of this team? What do we want the legacy of this team to be? If we want to be a team that wins everywhere, then we're going to have to take those tough decisions. And I think we shouldn't shy away from doing.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, plenty of thoughts going around for our batting lineups. So I guess we'll have to see with the next test what comes of it. Ahan.
I just had a point actually on the Jadeja thing. I don't think Jadeja at 5 is the worst idea. If they're going to invest in that idea, because I think he has the technique and the game. So if he gets told he's going to bat, he's going to become like a number 5 batsman who bowls a little bit. I think that actually works with. I honestly don't, after the series, I don't really rate him as an overseas test spinner. He's not. I said this before the series as well, that if I had to play one, I'd play Ashwin because of his bowling ability. But I think if you're going to play Jadeja as a number 5, I read a really interesting article that says if we get Pandya fit, Pandya, I'm going to take Pandya and Thakur as replaceables at this moment in time. We can have a 5, 6, 7, 8 of Jadeja, Pandya, Pant, Pandya, and then Ashwin, or even Thakur, which I think it gives you a lot of bowling, and then you can have 3 quicks after that. So it gives you a lot of bowling options. It gives you a lot of batting. Like, it's a good middle order as well. So I think if they just make it clear to Jadeja what his role is, I can see that being a good move. Or if they don't want to do it with Jadeja, they can. This might be slightly radical, but they can use Sundar in that role and properly invest in him. Like, tell him that's going to be a role, the next number 5 who bowls a little bit. And I think that's something that can genuinely work for India in the future.
Just to add on some of the batting points that have been made, right? The funny thing is KL Rahul was our 4th choice opener. And if I'm honest with you, the first 2 test matches, he was ahead of everyone. Like, the way he played, the composure he had, and him and Rohit Sharma at the top of the innings, they changed the game for us. It's a shame, like Rav pointed out, we couldn't capitalize like at Lords. We should have made 450, 500. And as soon as the openers were gone, our middle order crashed. Kohli, I think, he got his starts like everyone's mentioned. Pujara, I'm really, really pleased to see that. Yeah, fine, he had several low scores at the start of the series, but I think it was from the second innings at Lords, correct me if I'm wrong, but he showed that fighting spirit, and yeah, he's now in our in the top 3, top 4 runs scored in the series. Like he put value on his wicket, which we haven't seen him do for as long as we've in the last 6-7 months, as well as played some very valuable knocks, man. Very valuable knocks. It was good to see.
What he started doing was, instead of defending, right, he started looking to score as well, right? I mean, at the Oval, his cut shots, right, were an exhibition.
Uppercut, yeah.
Exhibition, right? It started off in Headingley. Yes, he was given some balls on the legs, right? But Pujara 6 months ago would have even scored 4s off them half volleys. It was kind of, this is my last innings for India. I need to do something. So
yeah, it's a real shame. It's a real shame that Rohane didn't stand up like Pujara did, because as you guys have mentioned, I think in theory it should be the end of the road for Rohane.
In theory, and theories are all we have right now. Jinesh, would you like to say anything about Joe Root?
Oh God!
Excellent, excellent. You know that innings by Joe Root at Trent Bridge. Had it not been for that innings, right, India would have won that test in 4 days. We wouldn't have, had to chase over 200. It was probably one of the best innings I've seen live, right? You know, it's how batting should be, right? Nice defense. Looking to score runs, getting off the mark with singles, hitting the half volleys for 4. If there's one criticism I'll have on VK, the captain, it was not using Bumrah enough early on to Joe Root, because I think there was a stat. Joe Root averaged 35 against Bumrah. I think Bumrah got him out 3 times or something. Whenever Kohli came into bat, Root always gave the ball to Anderson. And I think that's the trick that, Kohli missed. He gave the ball to Siraj, and Siraj, he's he's got a bit of an ego, aggressive. You needed Bumrah to kind of start off against Root.
And just to add on Root, right? Like, as Jin said, it was he played so many class knocks, but he's not the typical aggressive batsman, but he's still scoring at a strike rate of 70 odd without looking like he's taking any risks. So the manner in which he punishes the bad balls and the consistency of his punishment is brilliant. It was a ridiculous knock. And back in the day, Joe Root was known to not convert his starts. He was the guy who didn't get the hundreds, whereas this series he capitalized he got 300-400s. Very impressive, very impressive.
Yeah, go on.
Let's be honest. I think he made it a contest. He made this series a contest. Without Root, even with India's poor batting, we would have won easily.
Yeah, I mean, as Jin said, Trent Bridge was what he thought the best. So I went to see the Lords day 3, and I remember sitting with my friend, watching him bat, and I think he got 180 not out. And initially we were like, okay, yeah, he's batting well. And after a point, I think after tea, it was just this is so frustrating, because he played a whole day of test match cricket in England. He didn't give 1 chance. I think he must have got beaten thrice in the whole day, and there was not 1 chance. And I was like, damn, that's probably the scene his 180 which he scored in Lords. And I honestly, we underestimate how important that wicket was of Anderson on the last ball, because if Root came in the next morning with Anderson, he could have scored 40-50 runs really quickly, and that could have completely changed the game, because he just looked like he would not get out. And it was just it was a masterclass in how to bat.
Well, he is the #1 batter in the world in Test cricket now. Top of the rankings is Joe Root, and he firmly deserves to be there. He was out of this world in this series, as we just saw in the stats earlier. Right, shall we talk about our bowling then? We talk about our batting, how it's up and down. Well, this bowling unit looks like it is flying higher than ever. let's have a quick look at the bowling stats and the top wicket takers that have occurred in this series. Obviously, it's led by Ollie Robinson and obviously James Anderson there, of course, the veteran at number 3. In England, you're going to expect stuff like that. But Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj, and Mohammad Shami in that top 5, all chipping away in this series and all playing absolutely brilliantly. We're obviously going to talk about Bumrah, I'm sure, a fair deal later on. But look, when we talk about this bowling attack, we've got to talk about Oval and Lords. Really, those were the 2 matches where it was pretty much the bowling attack that won it for us. So Oval and Lords, guys, for the guys who were there, I think you were there on the last day. We saw you in the video, kind of going absolutely mental and stuff. What was your thoughts on this bowling attack and Oval and Lords?
I think if you go back to the kind of run of play at Lords and you go into that final day, and India then have 60 overs to make something happen. I think Kohli, you cannot talk about either 5th day without talking about the captaincy of Kohli and the environment he created at Lords to say to the bowlers, just come in, be nasty, run in hard and make something happen. First ball, a ball kicks up off Burns' glove and falls short. And then afterwards, the crowd's going and the rest is history. And then really for the Oval, we went into day 5 where all of these stats were coming out, the highest runs ever to win, and they're going to get 370. And it's almost like we'd forgotten who England were. And we thought this was kind of Steve Waugh's Australia chasing high runs to beat records. So I think what we all thought and what the commentary fair thought was that for such a docile wicket, for Bumrah in particular, and also to extract the bounce and the life from that wicket was such a special effort. And really, if you go back to both days, I said that, and I did say this previously, that I think Lords was the more intense of the victories because the run of play kind of moved was so volatile throughout the Test match, whereas at the Oval, after we'd really gotten to 190 and India had something to bowl at, India were kind of ahead in that game, and it was therefore chances. Whereas I felt that Lords was a bit more of a kind of smash and grab, a bit of an ambush, and whereas if you look at the Oval, it was more of a complete performance because you got more of kind of your spinner day 5, kind of taking wickets as well, contributing, and also fielding, run outs. These kind of crazy things always happen on day 5s of games. So I think for India to manage the chaos that was created on both of those days was a testament to them, and they deserve both victories very, very much.
Ash, you mentioned let's talk about the bowlers at Lords and Oval, but it was the batting from our bowlers which gave us a chance on day 5 to win that test. So bowlers fully deserve credit, not just for their bowling. Like, it was criminal England lost that game. There's no chance that start of day 5, India had a thought. All we were thinking is, let's try and survive. And even that was a tough ask. I wasn't there in the morning and I made it there for lunch, and it was the best decision I made to see that materialize to what it became. And like Rav touched on, Kohli deserves that credit, right? Because he's built that aggression, that fear, and that we can do this attitude. And I think it was 50 something overs we cleaned them up in. And a lot of us were thinking, wait, has he left it too late? Like, should we have declared earlier? Because it was still a very tough ask for England. Oval, on the other hand, right, it was a more complete performance, but I think at the start of the day, 3 results were possible. I probably had a bit more hope when that run-out chance towards the end of the first session on day 5 took place, Agarwal run out. Otherwise, I think despite it being a complete performance, the shock of Lords, it was day 5 was a Bollywood film where you just don't expect those kind of endings, and it worked out. Like, it was brilliant, man. It was brilliant.
Jinesh, I want to talk a bit about Jasprit Bumrah here, because at the Oval, I think, like everyone's kind of touched on here, Lords was a little bit of a heist. It was a quick, kind of snatch and grab kind of feel to it. England obviously played their part in losing in that match because they kind of threw away with the ball. But at the Oval, Jasprit Bumrah bowled those 6 overs and got Ollie Pope and Johnny Bairstow out. When the ball started reverse swinging out of nowhere, I can't remember in my lifetime watching an Indian fast bowler bowl a spell that was that devastating. I'm obviously too young for Kapil Dev and all of those guys, but Jasprit Bumrah were there. The only other bowler that comes to mind with a spell like that is maybe Irfan Pathan in Australia when he got Gilchrist and Steve Waugh kind of in a short period of time when the ball was swinging. But what a spell that was by Jasprit Bumrah.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, I was at the ground watching when he was running in. And in my mind, just before he got Pope out bowled, I was thinking for India to win this, we need like a Pakistani 1992 kind of a Waqar Yunis Yorker, yeah? And the next ball he got bowled and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting it, right? That spell was amazing because Kohli started egging the crowd on. The Bharat Army Dole was playing. Oh, it was magical. The icing on the cake would have been if he'd bowled Joe Root out as well, but Joe Root's like toe end of the bat, stopped him. But I want to give Virat Kohli 2 pieces of credit, right? One is the fitness that he's basically drilled into this Indian team, right? There's a reason why that was Bumrah's 35th spell of the series, and it was his fastest, right? That comes from fitness, and that comes from Kohli. And the other credit that I want to give to Kohli, especially for the Oval, because had we not won, he would have got hammered by a lot of people, like he was on day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4 of the Oval, is where's Ravi Ashwin? Well, Ashwin wasn't there and he took 10 wickets. Hats off to Virat Kohli throughout the series for picking the best bowling that would have got him, 20 wickets. And 3 of the test matches, we've got 20 wickets. Headingley, we couldn't compete once we were 78 all out. So, hats off to Kohli for his bowling attack.
Yes, indeed, 100%. Ahan, what were your thoughts on the Indian bowling attack and the way that they performed in this series?
I think they were definitely they were the reason we won, we are where we are in the series, because I think without them, we've always come to England. We've had the batting to kind of compete with England, at least in my lifetime. We've had the batting that's been good enough to score some runs in England, but the bowling's let us down. It was always Zahir Khan, and then we were scrambling to find who else with him. So I think now that we have the bowling, it's insane, because I think we've got 3 proper quicks who are running in and absolutely killing it. And then we have one guy who seems to have magic in his hands. He does whatever he feels like and it comes off. So I think it's definitely, Virat Kohli has to get credit for this, because let's not forget, this is not something that's been around like 10-15 years. It's happened in the last 5 years, and that's a lot to do with the kind of captain Virat Kohli is as well, because he's the kind of captain. I remember Dhoni always used to have the issue that if anything went wrong, his first idea was turn to spin. Kohli's not like that. He wants the aggression that he comes with. Fast bowling is like what he wants. It's what he needs. He wants his fast bowlers to go and intimidate them, and I think we are so lucky. The only good thing that Mumbai Indians has ever done for Indian cricket is find Jasprit Bumrah. That is the only good thing that I will give them credit for. But he is so good. Like, I think that spell, I was watching it. So unfortunately, it's the one day I should have gone over. I didn't go for because I was sitting at home. But what a spell! I was watching it on TV. It was absolutely mental spell. I think the ball he bowled to get. The thing is, I don't even think the ball he bowled to get best was the ball of the series. For me, the ball of the series was the ball he bowled to get Ollie Robinson at Lords. That was absolutely to bowl him around the wicket, off cutter, right arm bowler. That was just crazy. I think he's, according to me, the best all format bowler in the world today.
100%. Do you know, if I could just add on the bowling, we managed to get wickets at the right time. And that, for example, if you go to the first test, England were 130 for 3, last ball before tea, Bairstow, LBW, Shami, right? 133 for 3 becomes 133 for 4, and there's a collapse. At the Oval, the same thing. Shardul Thakur hits a 50. We get to 190. you know, a lot of us are kind of down and out, and you know, Umesh Yadav produces a beauty, right, to get rid of Joe Root. I'm telling you, had Joe Root been batting on day 2, he would have scored a double century. So Ishant Sharma, you know, at Lord's second test when Root was scoring 180 not out, right? All of a sudden he went second gear. He just kept on. He got 2 in 2. I think, I can't remember. I think, was it Ali and Sam Curran? Sam Curran got a golden duck. Same with second innings, right? It was Siraj who got Ali and Curran. So we got wickets at the right time, as and when we needed them throughout the series.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, very complete performance by the Indian bowling attack and the Indian captain to set all the right fields. And with that, India were 2-1 up, and that's when everything went to pot. So, okay, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this kind of knows the story of what's happened. But look, a few of the Indian staff test positive for COVID, Ravi Shastri amongst them, and this happens towards the tail end of the Oval match. So India carry on with the Oval match, and then we're basically told that, you know, leading up to the Old Trafford match, that one other member of the back staff, a physio, Yogesh Parmar, has tested positive for COVID. Now, the issue is that Yogesh Parmar is in very close proximity to the rest of the players, and is basically, you know, he can't do his job without basically physically being near them. He needs to. He's the physio. So the 5th test is then all up in the air, and nobody quite knows what's going to happen. We are then told that the Indian team have all tested negative. This happens the day before the match starts. Rav, you're on the train going to Manchester. What happened while you were on the train? Right.
So it's a 7:20 train from Euston. So I don't even know what's happening anyway, right? So it's really early. So it's about 8 o'clock, and then obviously phones are going off, and there's a lot of kind of breaking news, this, that, and the other kind of push notification saying that the game's been cancelled. And at that point, obviously, everybody's kind of grasping for whatever information we can find. There's a very hastily put out ECB press release using the word forfeit, which was rolled back very, very quickly, which I thought was very interesting in itself. And from that point, obviously, through the day, we got to Manchester, we had a beer and turned back. But I think really, when you look back at the events of that Friday, I don't think it does cricket any service whatsoever. I think cricket really, I know it's a real cliche and stuff, but cricket really lost on Friday. I felt that Test cricket really missed out, and I felt that, you know, you talk to some of the people, and they had interviews with, you know, people who are running businesses at Old Trafford, vendors, all that, and you know, this was a big test. This was a test match in England that the BCCI managed to get called off. So this was not a test in India. I think it's a very, very important moment for the game, and one that could have huge repercussions going forward.
Okay, so just to summarize then, what we're given, because like Rav said, a first statement was released from the ECB saying that India had forfeited the match and the series was drawn 2-2. They then retracted that statement and then came out with a statement later on, basically saying that the match had been cancelled, not because of anyone testing positive in the Indian camp, but because of fears of COVID in the Indian camp and any of the players testing positive. And what we're told later on, speculation kind of being what it being, is that the Indian team had written a letter to the BCCI at midnight the night before the game and had said that they are not comfortable to play the match. This then basically carries on right until 9 o'clock in the morning when the gates are opening for Old Trafford. And then people who are coming into the ground had just found out at that point that the match had been cancelled. At the moment, the actual result of the series is still in complete limbo, and the Indian players are now in Dubai for the IPL. Janesh, what's your thoughts on the whole debacle?
No, I actually think ICC need to get a grip. The reason being is I think the ECB, are scared of losing revenue, right? They've got insurance policies that say if it's cancelled due to COVID, there won't be a payout, right? But if it's forfeited or cancelled for another reason, there will be a payout. So I don't really buy their statement of Indian players having, mental health issues and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. There is a fact here. The fact is a member of the Indian contingent had COVID. So that means the other players were exposed. But this is where cricket needs to have rules in place that in this situation, is a cancellation allowed or not? Or in this situation, if you don't want to play, you forfeit the match, right? There shouldn't be kind of like post-mortems like 2 weeks later to say whether it's a cancellation or not. This should be in the rules at the start. That's my issue with the ICC. And it's not like it's 2020 where we didn't know COVID was around. This was an inherent risk at the start of this series if you did not play in a bubble. So that's where I think cricket lets itself down. And the other thing is, I do think, it's taking the mickey out of fans when the Indian stars start posting on Instagram, right? If you're fit to fly, in my opinion, you're fit to play.
Interesting. Amish, what's your thoughts?
So yes, cricket did lose that day. However, if someone tested positive the day before and they've been in close contact, sure, I can understand why these players feel uncomfortable. Yeah, they're flying and so forth, but you could still test positive a few days after, and that could have impacts to England's camp as well. So I think I don't want to be too harsh to the players because we need to appreciate the situation they've been in for God knows how long, playing in bubbles and so forth, and knowing that they're supposed to go to the IPL, whatever they're supposed to do after. I think it's fair to feel uncomfortable. Right? Sorry, JC, you mentioned the point of rules should be in place. If you feel uncomfortable, then you forfeit. I disagree with that point. Rules should be in place, but if you feel uncomfortable, like that shouldn't mean you have to forfeit. I think it's fair to feel that level of discomfort and anxiousness and so forth, given the fact that, guys, there's families with them and so forth, and like who knows what's actually happening, but how strict players and so forth were is debatable, and you can't control someone else's actions. So someone else gets it, you're exposed, your family's exposed. Like I would be very nervous in that situation too. I agree that it's a bit of a joke where people are posting on social media, blah, etc., etc. But I don't think it's fair to say that because they're uncomfortable they should forfeit, and because I think that's understandable. And I think we all need to recognize here what the Indian cricket team have given us over the last 12 months during this pandemic. I think they've done absolutely brilliant to play as much cricket as they have, and that has made the last 12 months for us. Yeah. They've had very little break in between, and we haven't been in the situations they've been of being locked up in a room, and how one person handles it could be very different to how someone else handles it. So I don't think it's fair to judge. Sure, they could have done a few things that make it look less suspicious, but
I think
once again,
you raised a good point about what they've done over the last 12.
Oh, I've just lost you, Rav.
Yeah, I've lost him as well.
Yeah, we'll try to get Rav back in a minute.
Look, I'm not. Look, I appreciate what the Indian team's done. It's what I'm saying. This is not from a Indian team perspective or an England team perspective or whatever. From a cricket perspective, right? There has to be a line that's drawn, which you can only draw by rules, because next year it could be someone touring India and they, we can't be asked to play now. So, we've got COVID or whatever. So there has to be something in the rules what's acceptable or what's not. Like Dinesh Karthik said, the Indian players are tired. Tiredness is not a reason why you do not play Test cricket. So what I'm saying is ultimately to avoid this situation, right, we should know at the start, like what other sport like sits here 5 days after or 3 days after and doesn't know what the result of the series is. Yeah, it's either 2-1 or we're going to play another match, or it's 2-2. Make your minds up. You know, it should not take this long.
ICC should have more or better guidance out there for this situation.
Exactly.
And like I think you mentioned that we're in a pandemic. You know, this is a risk. It's a 5-test series. Like and you haven't left much buffer room between matches. I think there's a 3-4 day break. Like you're like they haven't helped themselves with the fixture list. But I guess I'm just recognizing the situation the players are in, because they've been back to back non-stop. They haven't had a break and they've been in constant bubbles. So I'm not even oblivious to the fact that if the roles were reversed and England were 2-1 up and they decided to do that, I'd hate it. I'm sure we all would, but
they did do that in South Africa.
Yeah, but hold on. The situation in this series right now with that deciding test, like if India had a choice of walking away after the 4th test, knowing that, do you know what, let's change it to a 4-test series, I think they would have done that regardless. Like if that was a choice, because I think we were in a great position at the end of the 4th test that it's easy to walk away. Whereas I can't say that that was the same or the magnitude was there for England against South Africa.
Okay, let's see what Ahan has to say.
I think it's easy to sit here and criticize the decisions and criticize people's Instagram captions and posts. I think if you look at the pure facts, right? The guy tested positive on Thursday. The match started on Friday. He was in close contact with at least for sure we know Pujara, Rohit, and Jadeja, because they were nursing injuries and he was the physio. So those 3 for sure, and who knows how many others. Now imagine you're Kohli, right, in this situation. Let's say you take the field, you feel a full strength side. You're fielding next to Rohit at slip. Let's say he tests positive 3 days into the game. On day 3, test positive, and you've been feeding him in slip. You have a 1-year-old baby at home. You don't want to put your whole family, your whole house, everyone at risk.
Absolutely.
Yes, okay, it's a convenient way to say, oh, it's the IPL's fault. IPL this, IPL that. I mean, that's the easy thing in cricket now. Anything wrong with cricket is down to the IPL. I think BCCI don't give a shit anymore about that. Not that they ever did. But I think the point here is that you can completely understand why the players chose to play. And anyone who says that India would have done this and I'm trying to be cheeky doesn't know Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli is legacy driven. He wants his legacy to have no doubt about it. He wants to be the greatest Indian player, captain, whatever, of all time. And he would, if up to him, he wants to win a series in England. 5-0 ideally, but I mean, he wants to win it properly with no one doubting anything or saying, oh, we won because of that. There is no way if that he would willingly choose to say, oh yeah, actually, you know what, I couldn't be asked anymore, let's cancel this and walk away. Like it's definitely something that has to do with them personally. And once they made the decision, once they've chosen to go back, why does it matter what they're posting on Instagram? It's their personal lives. Let them do what they want. They want to post a caption saying, I love Dubai, I love Mumbai Indians, I love Delhi Capitals. I don't care. Like, do it, man.
I'll tell you why it matters. I'll tell you why it matters, because you've just said to me right now that, someone's tested positive and, in 3 days' time, there may be a player that tests positive and another player is exposed to it. But when you're on Instagram and 2 players are next to each other and their families, like Prithvi Shaw was with R. Ashwin's family, that theory goes out the window. That's why it matters, ultimately. But again, look, I'm not questioning all of that. All I'm saying is the ICC need to have rules in place, to say whether the game is cancelled or forfeit. And this should be, not down to the BCCI or the ECB. It's either this is acceptable for a cancellation and this is not acceptable for a cancellation. That's where we should be at. We can't judge what someone's feeling like, etc. I get all of that, but there should be rules in place at the start. So, okay, it happened on Friday morning, India forfeited or it's cancelled. So the series is, 2-1 or 2-2. Simple.
Let's
just get back to here. Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, just one thing. I think what people are missing here is the fact that once the Indian team got into a bubble starting the Manchester test so that they can do a bubble to bubble transfer to the IPL.
Correct.
Once that bubble got breached, there was always going to be a 6-day hard quarantine in Dubai.
Correct.
Whenever they, even if they played the 5 days of the test, and then when they would have had to quarantine. Now, once the test got called off, you have a multi-billion-dollar baby at stake here. You don't want to risk it. You will make all your steps in order to make sure that goes ahead as planned. You have to do a 6-day quarantine. That test is not happening. So why does it matter if India fly out on Saturday, go, and they are isolating? Whether they isolate in the UK or they isolate in Dubai, they are isolating for 6 days. So you might as well go isolate for 6 days in Dubai so that you can get the game underway when you, if God willing, and no one tests positive, everyone's okay. But like,
Correct.
if everyone quarantines for 6 days in Dubai and gets the IPL underway, that's fine. I mean, let's face it. If any of us had a multi-billion-dollar something at stake, we would do our best to protect it. Obviously, I mean, in the ideal world, we played the 5th test and we would fly out bubble to bubble, but the bubble got breached, and that at the end of the day, India had to do what they had to do, and I wouldn't say they walked away, because it's not in their DNA to walk away.
So make your mind up, right? Did they cancel the test because they feared COVID, or was it to protect that multi-million tournament? Because this is the people's issue. The issue is that once the bubble was breached, had India played the test match, they would have a 6-day quarantine, and Rohit Sharma misses that first game, right? They did not want to do that, hence they legged it.
No, that's my point is that they did not play the game because they were scared. Like I said, like Rohit Sharma, he was, if you're feeling next to Kohli, I mean, Kohli's putting himself at risk, right? Because Rohit Sharma was literally getting physio treatment. I mean, he could test positive, right? Now, if you put yourself, once you said no, the other option is, I don't know how many people were exposed, but you play a weakened team. Now, if you put out a weakened team and then we lose to England, then everyone will say, oh, why did we have to play with a weakened team? In the post-mortem, everyone were like, oh, we had to take this guy out. We couldn't play Rohit because he was exposed, all of that. I mean, so once it was cancelled, which is because they were worried about playing, because they were worried about being next to someone who had COVID, then whether they leave that day or whether they leave 6 days later, why does it matter to you? They've left because they're done. Like, the game is over, so they have to leave.
Yeah, I get that. But imagine if England 6 weeks ago, right, said, oh, Stokes ain't playing, Archer ain't playing, Broad ain't playing, we're not fit enough to play. Because ultimately, this is why the rules need to be there. I get it. Rohit Sharma, Pujara, Ishant, Shami, they were exposed to the physio. They're close contacts, they can't play. The reason you have a 23 or 25 member touring squad is for these eventualities, right? And this is why the rules need to be clear. India, whether we like it or not, they've pulled a fast one. That's my opinion.
Let's quickly go back. Let's quickly just go back to Rav, because he got cut off a little while earlier. So let's let him finish his point from earlier, and then we can carry on this discussion.
Thank you, mate. So the point I was making is that there's one big elephant in the room here, which is that India applied for this test match to be moved before the test series even started. So there was always this issue about the timing, etc. COVID obviously gave those concerns a bit more legitimacy, let's call it that. And from that point on, it was a bit of a fait accompli. I honestly felt that, and I said this to many people at the Oval, I said, oh, we've won the test. What if this is a COVID scare now and we just cancel the series and that's it, we go home? And that's exactly what happened. And I'm not saying there's any kind of bad things that's happened here, but what I am saying is that there were always concerns from before the series started about the rescheduled IPL's proximity to the final game. And I think that once that became a bit more of a material issue, I think a commercial decision was made. I'm not naive enough to say that is, in the broader scheme of things, not going to be what they're going to do, because commercial decisions have been ruling cricket for some time already. But I think one thing we need to appreciate here is that I personally think this was different for many reasons. It's different from the fact that the BCCI managed to get a test match cancelled in somebody else's country, and I personally think that's quite a big deal. And when it's England, which is, you know, it's a major part of the cricketing nations, etc. You know, from that perspective, I think that it's not done cricket any favors, because let's look at what's been discussed today. We've either got additional T20s, which is just a commercial filler, or we've got a 5th test match that takes place 12 months after the series started, where England arguably will have a much stronger side. So how in any of this did the Indian test team win? If anything, our chances of securing that overseas Pataudi trophy have probably just become a little bit harder if that test match is to count as well. So, you know, I know all about the sensitivities of the IPL, but the idea that suddenly that schedules don't count and that, you know, you can renege on agreements that have been made also to broadcasters I just think is bad ethics personally. I think it's not in good faith, regardless of how big our product is. You can't behave like that and expect to have many allies at the end of it.
Ahan, we'll come back to you.
I think what people are forgetting in all of this is that England did the exact same thing in South Africa when they walked away.
Yeah.
They one second. They made commitments to a board. There were broadcasting needs. Everything you just said was in place, and they walked away. It's a convenient story. It's a convenient storyline to say that India wanted this move earlier, and therefore they just come in the situation and pull this. If India wanted to not play it, and if they were genuinely that keen on pulling a fast one, Ravi Ashwin tested positive on day 4 of the Oval Test. If they generally just wanted to leave on day 5, they could have said after the match, they could have at that moment said that the bubble has been we've had too many players in close contacts, and therefore we can't carry on with this test. India wanted to play that final test. They tried their best to make it work. Now, if someone in such close proximity has tested positive, I don't think we are in any position to question the fact that what they have their families next to them. What do you do if, let's say, God forbid, like two of a player and his wife test positive and their kids are negative or something along those lines? What happens in that situation? Yes, it's convenient to blame the IPL because the IPL is coming in a week. It's convenient to say that we wanted to reschedule for the longest time. But at the end of the day, they are people as well. They live in bubbles. They've been playing throughout the year, whatever. But they are people, and if they are not feeling safe enough to play, just because there is something else happening 8 days later does not mean or invalidate their feelings of not feeling safe to play at that moment.
So Ahan, I totally agree with you. And JC, I agree with you about Ahan. You're right in terms of whatever happens after is irrelevant, and the fact that they feel uncomfortable is like that's important enough for them to be able to step back because they are humans as well. JC, where I agree with you is ICC should have had rules in place so we don't have these debates, and if they are making this decision, they know the consequences. The fact that no one's sure what is going on is why we're having this discussion. I think both arguments are correct, fair in isolation.
And I'll tell you what's amazing though, how support staff have COVID. Not one player has COVID. And I'm telling you another thing, in the next week, there'll be no Indian player that has COVID. And ask any of your friends, if they've been around one person at close proximity and that person has COVID, they will have COVID. I had COVID myself. My wife had it. My son had it. And I'll tell you one thing, there's no way if someone had COVID, the other 5 who were close contacts will not have it. 100%.
We'd just like to say as a disclaimer that Jinesh is not a medical professional.
Yeah, because I've seen instances. I've seen instances where someone is in close contact and they haven't tested positive. So what you've said, JC, like I don't think there's like look, we're not that medical expert.
Can I weigh in on this debate for a second? Because I've had a couple of thoughts all about this and stuff, and I don't normally give my opinions on this, but I might as well tonight.
Is this another one of those rants coming from last time? I think
no. I'm not ranting about anything. I rant about many a thing, but I'm not ranting on this one. Look, here's my problem with all of this, right? it was very fast and very quick that as soon as the reason was given that the Indian players are feeling anxiety about COVID in their ranks, how quickly people just dismissed it. This is what my problem has always been from the entire thing, is that, you know, that initial response came out. The head of the ECB was on television on Sky Sports saying, this is what the problem is. The boards have been up all night trying to find a way to make it work, but the players feel really uncomfortable about this, and we can't ask them to carry on and play because they've specifically said that we're feeling uncomfortable. We're feeling this anxiety about COVID in our ranks. And people just so quickly said, nope, it's because of the IPL. Nope, it's because of the money. Nope, it's because they're all greedy and just want to fly off. You had people on Sky Sports and on, you know, other areas. Obviously, people know what I feel about Test Match Special, saying, no, it's just because they're greedy and they want to run off. That, for me, said a lot about English cricket, to be honest, and the reason why they've had so many players with mental health issues over the years. You had Marcus Trescothick, you had Jonathan Trott, and now you've even had Ben Stokes saying that he needs to take some time away from this game because they do not take it seriously when players are saying that we're feeling this anxiety and feeling these mental health issues. And then when like a photo pops up on Instagram of them in the sunshine, they're like, oh, look, that's evidence that they didn't have any mental health issues. People used to say the same thing about Princess Diana back in the day, by the way, that, oh, she was smiling on the front cover of the Telegram, so she kind of like had mental health issues over the weekend. Like, people have got to understand one thing, that like I've kind of like, I see through some of the BS that's going on around the coverage of this, that the IPL has been demonized from the minute that it was created. I remember BBC News articles on BBC News like pieces about IPL the night before it was even going to start, the night before the first match, saying this is the end of cricket as we know it, as if English cricket didn't create 2020 cricket, as if English cricket didn't create the 100. And by the way, that whole moving the Old Trafford test, why was it not moved in the first place? It was because England wanted to protect the 100. It was because they wanted Joe Root to play in like a couple of games at the start of the 100.
No.
That was the reason why it wasn't moved. It's because ECB were protecting the 100.
Why should they move a test match when it's agreed, when you've sold tickets?
But then why should the BCCI not protect the IPL then?
That's fine. But India should not have agreed to the test match. India should not have agreed to the Manchester test match.
The idea was there about what about cancelling it? That idea was put forward, and the ECB said no because we've already sold tickets. And if the BCCI were this, but if the BCCI were this big bad monster that everybody keeps making them out to be, they could have just said, "Well, we're just not going to turn up to the tour." Or you guys are not allowed to play in the IPL then, or done this big demonization thing. But the way that we've been constantly hammered and badgered about this message of the IPL is bad and the IPL is evil and the BCCI are terrible and all of this type of stuff, it's complete nonsense. Everybody is just acting on their own interests. Everybody, including the ECB. The problem isn't anything to do with the IPL. The problem is we're living in the age of COVID, and the schedules are ridiculous. The schedules that these players have to play under and these bubbles that they have to go under is absolutely ridiculous. There's absolutely no wiggle room in the schedule for us to say, well, let's play the Manchester Test match like a week later or anything, because the schedules are packed. Because these players are treated like commodities. They're not treated like actual human beings who have these feelings under these circumstances. And then when guys like Johnny Bairstow and all of that say we're pulling out of the IPL, it becomes, oh, patriots, they're walking away from the evil IPL and protecting their international duties. It's nonsense. They want to spend time with their families. They're perfectly entitled to do that. It's got nothing to do with them not wanting to play in the IPL. It's because the schedule is an absolute brain freeze. They're going into the World T20 afterwards and then going to the Ashes after that. And they want to spend some time with their families. Ben Stokes is not playing right now because he's taken time away from the game because of the mental health issues that he's had. That's the problem. These guys are all fried. It's nothing to do with the IPL, and it's nothing to do with the BCCI being a monster. Virat Kohli's a monster. IPL is like the most evil thing that's ever happened. And one more thing, because I keep hearing this whole thing about English cricket is like, you know, the bastion of all that's good, and the Indians represent everything that's so worse about it. When the biggest club institution in English cricket, which is Yorkshire, released the report about Azim Rafiq the day that this match was cancelled, and didn't give him his day in the sun, his day of justice in the sun, when in their report it actually says now that he was a victim of racist abuse, and they've cleverly hidden it away amongst this thing, the biggest institution of club cricket in England, and yet we're constantly told by the powers that be that no, it's the IPL which is everything that's wrong with English cricket. Look over there, look over there. That's my problem with this whole thing.
Yeah, but Sky Sports acknowledged that. Sky Sports acknowledged the Yorkshire cricket. And my problem ain't the IPL. My problem is there should, you cannot just on the morning of a test match cancel. There has to be agreement, on the morning. There can't be, we're going to long it out. We're going to talk on the 23rd of September, whether it's cancelled or forfeited. That's
I agree with you. I agree with
this.
you completely. I agree with you completely. But we are living in the age of COVID. This type of madness will happen. Brazil and Argentina walked onto the pitch and it got called off within 2 minutes of the full, like the whistle being blown because of COVID. These are the kind of crazy things which are going to keep happening. And in the UK, we don't have any restrictions here anymore. We don't have any restrictions here anymore, and we can't ask these players to play in these severe bubbles anymore. So this is going to keep happening, unfortunately, unless we ask them to go. Yeah, look, England don't want to go to Australia to play in the Ashes right now because Australia are telling them that they've got to go into hard bubbles.
They should call Mr. Shastri. They said that to India as well. Shastri said, we're not coming. They ended up going with their family.
There you go. There you go. So maybe we should think about the players a little bit more. Rav, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think it's been a really, like I said, it's not been long since it's all happened, and I think really we've got to look at the impact that it's going to make going forward, because clearly now there's this whole kind of will they, won't they play this fifth game? Is it significant? Is it not, etc. And from that point, I just feel that it kind of it dampened the momentum that India really got. I know we go to these series, no trophy celebration, none of that, none of the kind of recognition of what had happened over kind of 3 months of kind of hard work. I think we're all very well aware of kind of how much the Indian team value Test cricket. I don't think that up for any kind of discussion whatsoever. I think Kohli wanted a best of 3 World Test Championship final. So the idea that India kind of don't care about Test matches is for the birds. But I think overall, if you look at where we've been in the last few days, I think that it could have been handled a lot better by both boards. It should have been cancelled the night before. But to get to the point where India is still not confirmed as champions of this series, when actually you look at it and you think, I was thinking of this the other day, like Australia were 2-1 up in the Ashes in 2019. England won the final game and I know they play for the Ashes and I know it's different, but England won that final game and it was 2-2. So there is an impact obviously for the World Test Championship. So we need answers sooner rather than later. But what a chance to go 3-1 up. I mean, I said to someone, the only team to win a 5-test series here in the last 20 years is Steve Waugh's Australia. That could have been us, right? I don't think it's beyond unreasonable to say, look, it's that massive opportunity. And I get the whole thing about bubbles and everything, but I don't have to like it, and I don't have to like the fact that Test cricket was it just took a really, really big knock the other day, in my opinion. I know everybody's got views about South Africa. South Africa was played with empty houses for a start. South Africa was a 3-match ODI that was played in empty houses, and the series had not yet commenced. So I think this idea that I kind of scrambled for the South Africa excuse when I first looked at all of this. I did all of that as well, but the deeper you go into it, the less that holds at water, in my opinion. And I just think it's important to be objective. If you look at the grade cricketer, even those guys, they were like, look, we love India, we talk about them all the time, but what is this? We have to be able to be honest about these things. And I just feel that maybe we're not being as honest as we want to be on this.
Ahan, you had a hand up.
I think what's swayed people's minds, I'm telling you very honestly, is the Instagram posts that people have put up since they've gotten to Dubai. The amount of people who have changed their opinions since the Indian cricketers started posting their Instagram captions and Instagram posts is ridiculous. I think we have to distance ourselves from all of that. I think at the end of the day, yes, I understand what everyone has said about IPL, this, that. But at the end of the day, if you are not feeling comfortable, who are we to know whether? Honestly, I don't even think that the result. I think there is a deeper story to this on the day itself, or even the next day. I think there might have been some positive cases which haven't even come out come out to the public, because yeah, that's what I just think that
they couldn't fly to Dubai. They can't fly to Dubai.
No, I don't think
with a positive case.
Any of the ones who went to Dubai have it, but no, I know. I don't think anyone of the ones who went to the thing. There is a story here that we're maybe not being told. And I think to speculate and to blame everything, as Ash very rightly said, to blame it on the IPL, it's an easy excuse. It's a convenient excuse, and I think we need to get over the fact that the IPL is everything that's wrong with cricket. Because let's face it, even for England, who are supposedly the biggest haters of the IPL, it's arguably given them their World Cup, right? The IPL has helped them revolutionize the way they play. It was a major part of the revolution in sending people across to the IPL to change the way they play, to let them get the experience and the exposure. So I think it's an easy excuse, and I think it's the easy target for everyone. And I just feel like at the end of the day, if the players said they're not comfortable with it, that's what we have to leave. And all this speculation will go on forever, but they weren't comfortable. There was a positive case, and that's that.
One last thing. When's the IPL going to give India a World Cup?
Hopefully,
I don't know.
The following week after the IPL finishes.
Yeah, hopefully.
However, guys, let's all just agree it's been a fantastic summer. It's been a fantastic 12 months for Indian Test cricket. We've been blessed. We've been blessed.
100%.
It has indeed. It has indeed. And as everybody said, we're still going to keep following this story of finding out exactly who did win this series. Answers on a postcard, please, to Bharat Army headquarters. And with that, I think we're gonna call it a night over here. Thank you very much, everybody who joined us on YouTube and Instagram. Thank you very much for all the comments that have been coming in today. Thank you very much, everybody, for showing the love. And we will be back for the IPL next. Ironically, we'll be back with some of our IPL shows. Ahan will be on supporting his beloved Delhi Capitals.
Come on, Chennai.
Here we go. It's already started. It's already started. Thank you very much, then, everybody. And we will see you on the next podcast. Thank you.